I just walked in the door, literally not even 20 minutes ago, back from a photo shoot in Austin, Texas, all the way back to the Pacific Northwest, just so Stella and I can make this video for you. It's gonna be about my 240-gallon African cichlid tank Alcatraz behind me here. I'll be talking about every fish in the tank, the old guys and the new guys, and what kind of crazy things they've been up to. Let's get into it. Here we go. It could actually be called a hap tank because all the inmates are haps except for one OB that's either a full peacock or half peacock. I don't know what the hell he is. And a special guest star, Mbuna. And the word star is actually a pun for this Mbuna guy. You'll see later. The tank is 8 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet, and while I lost a little interest in the tank a while back, I love it more than ever now, and I think it's beautiful. Be sure to stick around to the end of the video because I'll be showing you supper time in Alcatraz, and you'll see just how crazy these guys all get for the awesome nibbles from Northfin and Ron Cichlids. But enough about all that. If you've been watching this channel for any length of time, then you probably already know Zeke. And you know that he's the best fish that ever lived. Tough as nails with a heart of gold. He's my Zebra obliquidens, one of the OGs from my first African cichlid order about 3 years ago from Imperial Tropicals. I didn't even know for sure what I wanted, so I ordered a few of those grab-and-go packages they offered, and I'd never recommend doing that now. Make sure you research each and every fish you have before you place an order to make sure they'll probably fit in nicely with your tank size and other inmates. I call them inmates because they live life on the wild side for sure. They're rough and tough, and if they were people, I think a lot of them would live in prisons. Just saying. But not Zeke. He's an incredible fish. He's one of my 4 Lake Victorians, which is just another lake near Lake Malawi, which is where most of my fish are from. He's topped out at 6 inches, and he's a peaceful boy, but he can get tough when he needs to. However, these fish can be on the more aggressive side, depending on the individual fish you wind up with. Love the deep black stripes and the contrasting bright gold with the orangey red spot over the heart. Gorgeous fish. It's no wonder why you're falling in love with him, even as we speak. His appearance, even though it's quite unique, does slightly resemble this other guy from Lake Victoria.
Subscribe, or someone dies. Ding ding.
Now you're looking at Eduardo, my thick-skin obliquidens, or species 44. That last name sounds really impersonal and boring to me, so I usually don't use it much. He's actually got my favorite colors in him. Well, almost. My favorite colors are burgundy and gold, and he's just about there, I'd say. Still has those cool stripes like Zeke has, and like most Victorians, a similar body shape that distinguishes them from other haps. He's the successor to my other thick-skin, Raphael, who died last year. I made a really horrifying mistake that cost me most of my fish in the tank, and he didn't make it. I was totally devastated, and he was one of my favorites. I made a video to help other fish keepers who have made similar serious mistakes. It's in the upper right corner. Eduardo is really cool and just as beautiful as Raphael was, but he's a tiny bit more aggressive. And these fish are on the more aggressive side compared to fish like the Zebra obliquidens, but still, he's not a living nightmare like some fish can be. I'm looking at you, peacocks. Eduardo is only 5 inches, and that's about as big as he's gonna get. What do you think of these Victorians so far? They aren't as common in hap tanks as most of the other haps, but I love them. Drop a comment and let me know if you're of the same opinion. Might as well take a look at the other 2 Victorians while we're at it, which are both fish I ordered from Ron Cichlids a few months ago. The first one is my Hippo Point Salmon, and he's still getting a feel for the place, so he's colored down quite a bit. Plus, I usually add smaller fish to the tank, smaller than the current inmates anyway, because they tend to avoid getting picked on that way. However, it can take them a while longer to color up to their full potential if you do that. Since I have a few fish in here that aren't colored up yet, I'll pop up an image of what they could look like if all goes well. And not many of my fish have names, like the Hippo Point, so if you would like to suggest some names, then go ahead. A lot of my fish who have names were named by viewers just like you. I like to make you a part of the experience with my tanks, and I respond to every comment that viewers make on my channel. Every single one, which isn't something every creator does. I've seen a lot of different looking Hippo Points online, so it'll be interesting to see which one he winds up looking like. From what I've seen so far, he'll be a darker orange on top with the yellow on the bottom, but we'll see. Right now, he's just been swimming around and sometimes frequenting one of the 4 pipes I have in the tank. He's not aggressive at all so far, and he should get to be about 5 inches. By the way, did you know it's not a bad idea at all to have Lake Victorians with an Mbuna tank? They actually go quite well together, and I thought of moving these 2 from Ron's over to the 75-gallon Mbuna tank. And I'll be doing a video like this next week on everyone in that aquarium, by the way. But I'd rather keep these 2 here in Alcatraz, at least for now. The final Victorian in Alcatraz is this boy right here, my Nuchus squamulatus. I dare you to say that 5 times as fast as you can. He has a bit of a different shape than my other Victorians, which I think looks amazing, but there's enough of the appearance of the other Victorians in him to still be able to tell that he's one of them. Like the Hippo Point, he won't get any larger than 5 inches. And he's not terribly aggressive either, but he is more so than Zeke and the hippo, probably more along the lines of Eduardo. I do see him chasing some other guys around, but only briefly, and he's not a monster like some Victorians can be. Once he colors up, he'll almost be unrecognizable from the fish you're looking at now, but his unique shape will surely give him away. And you know what? I've totally forgot about my 5th Lake Victorian. How could I do that? It's even another OG from my original cichlid order from Imperial Tropicals 3 years ago. It's Monty, my Pundamelia naerii. And what a guy. I know he's not the most beautiful inmate in Alcatraz, but he's a nice boy who puts up with a lot from Eduardo, and before him, Raphael. For some reason, those thickskins think Monty needs to be chased around a lot. And I'm thinking it's for that reason that his colors are pretty dark. His fins are only showing mild signs of aggression, which is good, so he's not in any immediate danger, and he doesn't act stressed. But in the last few days, I've seen what looks like possibly the beginning stages of Popeye showing up under one of his eyes. My fish have never had Popeye, so it could be something else entirely. It hasn't gotten any larger since I've noticed it, so that's good. But because of this, and because of something going on with Gary, you'll meet him in a minute, I'll be doing extra water changes to keep the water as pristine as I can for both of them. And that's it for the Victorians. I'm sure of it this time. So let's have a look at one of my pretty boys. My Whoops baby from when my old peacock OB had unprotected sex with an unidentified female from a disreputable breeder. I couldn't tell what she was, and she was sent to me as a male. Anyway, they got it on and sure enough had some kids, all of whom were eaten by the other fish in the tank, by the way, except for Whoops baby. And now, just look at him. Pretty sweet, right? Love the colors he's sporting, kind of a purplish in there too. He's the only peacock in the tank because peacocks are a-holes. I kind of just moved over to keeping haps instead, and I'm totally happy with that move. But this guy, he deserves a spot on my roster. He's not very aggressive, and I'm guessing he's done growing since he's been about 5 to 6 inches for the last 6 months. Peacocks usually stay around the 6-inch mark, whereas haps are generally on the larger side, some even getting up to around the 16-inch mark. Whoops baby can be a jerk sometimes, but he's usually just fine. Glad he didn't become supper, like all his siblings did. Since we're talking about oddball fish like my only peacock, and he could be a half peacock too, by the way, because like I said, I don't have any idea what his mom was. Let's talk about my other oddball, my one and only Mbuna, Icarus. He's a yellow lab, and I should say the only Mbuna in Alcatraz because I do have that other Mbuna tank. His hobbies include hanging out in pipes and eating nice veggie pellets, but he loves a fine pellet of any kind. And even though Mbuna need more of a plant-based diet, you can get away with feeding these yellow labs more protein than you can with other Mbuna, and that's one of the reasons why he's doing so well in here. Yellow labs have a vibrant yellow that you just can't get from other peacocks and haps. He won't be too aggressive, he's more of a mellow Mbuna, and he won't get any bigger than 6 inches. Even though he's often swimming around, he sure loves those pipes, and even though he's pretty small, he's happy to use his Mbuna powers to chase away home invaders right out of those pipes of his. Someone asked me why I don't move him into the 75 with the other Mbuna, and the answer's simple. I miss my old yellow lab, Ray, who also lived in Alcatraz, and now I'm locked in. I love seeing Icarus in here, and he does just fine, so he's staying. I think it's time we talk about the Otopharynx brothers, don't you think? All 3 of these guys from Ron's Cichlids are going to be gorgeous, but only one stands out right now, and that's Javier, the Nova Blue Longnose. Just look at that long flowing hair. I mean, long flowing fins, and that dazzling shade of blue. Seriously, those fins look like he had extensions, right? And I could totally see all 3 of these Ottos, which aren't really brothers by the way, all different species, fake tanning and getting highlights in their hair if they had any. Javier is drop-dead gorgeous, and that's why the ladies love him. There are no ladies in Alcatraz, of course, but I'm sure those ladies out there have heard of him anyway, maybe from one of these videos. He'll chase someone around occasionally, but he's usually just too busy trying to catch his own reflection in one of the panels to be bothered with the other inmates.
Look at me.
He's only 6 inches right now, but just wait until he's a full-grown 9-inch stud muffin. It'll be hard for him to live with such ordinary fish when he's so extremely beautiful by comparison. Well, except for this one here. It's Enrique, the Otopharynx tetrastigma.
So I'm guessing a few of you out there are saying to yourselves,
Didn't he call this guy Fabio in one of the other videos? So why the heck is he calling him Enrique?
well, he changed his name. I can do that.
This here is the most beautiful fish that I've ever seen. Well, not right now, but you just wait. Javier is gonna hate how gorgeous Enrique is gonna be. And he won't even need to fake tan or get fin extensions. You just can't find an African cichlid with these amazing pinkish purple hues. Unfortunately for now, he's just mostly silver, like an ugly female, but I know he's about to turn it on at any moment. I'll go to bed one night and say goodnight to Mr. Drab and wake up to a new reigning Mr. Universe.
Tight.
Enrique. Poor Javier. Life just won't be the same for him after that. At least maybe he'll have a little extra size on Enrique, who should be an inch smaller. But you and I both know that that extra size won't matter.
That's what she said.
Enrique is the bomb. The third autopharynx is Antonio, the Maramala Point. He's still silver like Enrique, and I often get them confused. Count the spots. But once he blossoms, he'll come in third in the beauty contest, and he'll probably need to fake tan and have fin extensions and whatever else he might need. Pretty, but nothing like the other two. I'm sure he'll make up for it with an amazing personality. Still, I'll enjoy that lovely shade of blue with a little dash of yellow near the dorsal fin. He'll be about the same size as Enrique, and both he and Enrique are at the 4-inch mark right now and largely keep to themselves, rarely chasing or being chased. We'll see if that changes once they blossom and become beautiful. Special thanks to my friends Bree and Carlos for helping to come up with these wonderful names for such beautiful fish. The Insignis hap has grown quite a bit since he arrived, but he's still on the small side, just under 4 inches and not really looking anything like he will once he's full grown. He's showing that signature yellow on his belly though, so I do have that. But he goes largely ignored because he's usually hanging out in the back, lurking in the shadows. I think he knows when I'm filming him too, which makes it even harder for me to catch him. My last one, Steve Holt, was generally peaceful, but occasionally his dark blue would turn into a light metallic sky blue. And once that happened, watch out. He'd become a total a-hole and corral everyone to 1/2 of Alcatraz. Fortunately, it would only last for a few hours. We'll see if this guy follows in his footsteps or forges his own path. Remember, any of these guys without names, need them. Otherwise, they're just fish. So let me know if you can think of anything unusual that might fit him just right. Time to talk about Gary, my Venustus. He's going on about 8 inches right now, and unlike the last 5 fish who came from Ron's Cichlids, Gary came from Petco.
Yep.
I don't ever buy fish from big box stores anymore for quality reasons, but I'm happy for Gary. He's a very good Venustus. He's also called a giraffe hap, who isn't nearly as aggressive as some horror stories would lead you to believe. Gary's a good one. Unfortunately for Gary, he's come down with an incurable virus in the past several months. You see those weird looking lips? Those aren't supposed to look that way. But he injured those lips when he darted around the 75-gallon tank I had to temporarily put him in, and that opened him up to catching lymphocystis. The best way to handle it is to keep the water pristine. I told you earlier that I'll be doing extra water changes for 2 reasons, and this is the second one. I would quarantine him, but he's had this for a few months and no one else has contracted the disease, so maybe an error. I feel okay leaving him in here. The disease isn't fatal and could clear up with some super clean water. Hopefully it does. I originally didn't want a Venustus, but I'm really glad that I have Gary. He's my second favorite, you know. Speaking of fish that I didn't really want, that brings me to Saturn, my Mdoka whitelips. And I don't even know why I wasn't totally crazy about him to start with, because he's one of my favorites now. I think Saturn might have more of a white splash down his mouth than the other whitelips, which I love. It's like he drinks a lot of milk and can't contain himself, kind of like me. He's one of the guys who came from Ron's Cichlids already colored up, and he's pretty much stayed that way, although right now you're kind of seeing a little less blue than usual. But hang around till I feed him, because you're going to see him turn that deep purplish blue that I love. Saturn stays toward the bottom of the tank a lot and can start feeling spunky occasionally. I've even seen him doing the dance, challenging Gary for tank boss. It didn't turn into a fight, and I think you can imagine Gary wasn't too terribly intimidated. Maybe someday, Saturn. And just kidding, you ain't never beaten Gary. As far as I know, Ron Cichlids is the only one who breeds Hawkliceps, which is what this guy is. I can't believe I don't have a name for him yet. He's a cross between a Malawi hawk and a wild Tyrannochromis maculiceps female. I used to have a Malawi hawk, and from what I've seen, this one should be even prettier. They really don't start showing much color until around the 6-inch range, so he's still silver, but it won't be long and we'll start seeing some of those gorgeous shades of blue along with some yellow fins. You'll notice that the mouth and head are really thin, but the mouth opens extremely wide. Don't tell Icarus, but that's so that he can squeeze into little cracks and eat any mbuna fry that might be in there. My Hawkliceps is completely peaceful in Alcatraz, and so was my Malawi hawk actually. He'll be one of the bigger boys, topping out at around 10 to 14 inches. Pretty big. Here's my Dimidiochromis strigatus, who has one of the most unusual shapes you'll find in a hap. He's also called a sunset hap. Mine's completely colored down and he has a damaged eye from a long time ago, which kind of adds to a scary, creepy vibe you might be getting from him. The Strigatus very closely resembles his cousin the Dimidiochromis compressiceps, or eye biter, who is even scarier and creepier than the Strigatus. But I've heard that the Strigatus is a little less angry than the eye biter. I've been tempted to get an eye biter many times, but it's just too risky due to their aggression. But in general, I try to stay away from the ones who have a really bad rap. My Strigatus just swims back and forth, usually toward the back of the tank. He'll eventually look stunning, but for now, this is what I got. These next two look really cool right now, but they're still sporting their non-dominant coloration and patterns. This is my Fusco, and you won't believe what it'll look like when he matures and starts feeling it. I mean, you can't even tell it's the same fish, right? But fortunately, and unlike the silver otopharynx fish, the Fusco looks incredible even when he's completely subdominant. Mine is very peaceful, but he's only 4 inches long, so that could change as he makes the jump to 9 to 12 inches. I have to say that even though he looks awesome now, he'll look much better once he matures. Maybe not as handsome as Javier, but he'll be close and have more of an Arnold Schwarzenegger type of face, very powerful. The type of face that says, you don't want any of what I got. And then look at Victor, my VC10. And once again, once he starts approaching that full-grown 8 to 10 inches instead of the 4 inches he is right now, he'll look more like a new man. I've been warned that he could have a super bad attitude and be a complete ass once he gets bigger. But let's do what we always do with African cichlids and just hope for the best. You never know, but I have seen him in a few minor fights here and there. Nothing too major, but it could be a sign of things to come. His species is named after the plane, the VC-10, that used to fly over where these fish were spotted in Lake Malawi. I've heard it was because they were so difficult to catch and would often disappear as quickly as a VC-10's overhead would disappear. It's kind of funny. This itty-bitty blue dolphin is a must-have for my tank. Alcatraz just wouldn't be the same without one. My last one, Moby, was an incredibly nice fish who didn't put up with any crap. If you've been watching my videos, then you know that I firmly believe their nuchal hump, the bump on their heads, houses their telepathic ability to control the one in charge of feeding time. So if I ever overfeed, it isn't my fault, just doing what I'm told, and I don't even know it wasn't my idea. Moby wasn't aggressive, but these fish can be, and already this little fella is way more aggressive than Moby was. Moby was 8 to 9 inches too. This one here is 3 inches, and already, if you look in his eyes, you can see he's smarter than everyone else. I bet he's running through the Mandelbrot set right now. Feeling like maybe I should feed a little extra tonight. Good idea, Dave. Would you just look at Ferk II, the Taeniolethronops versicata. Ferk II was an amazing fish. Dumb as a box of rocks, mind you. Couldn't even find food when it was right in front of his face, and he wasn't blind either, but he was kind. Yes, he was a kind fish. Never hurt anyone. Ferk II is also a nice fish, just going about his own business, but feeding is definitely something that he's more proficient at than Ferk II. He is a skilled eater. He's fun to watch right after supper because he does probably the most sand sifting after all the food settles to the bottom than any fish in the tank. He should eventually color up, but right now I'm happy with his plain silver and a little bit of yellow because it reminds me of Ferk II, the legend. Ferk II should be the biggest fish in the tank, by the way, at 12 to 16 inches. Humongo, and a gentle giant. How's about a little super red empress for you? I used to have a red empress, and they look fantastic. This guy's just more of a rainbowish type of fish, very colorful. Mine isn't as gorgeous as he'll probably be once he becomes more comfortable in the tank. He isn't aggressive at all, so he's just happy to let someone else, like Gary, be tank boss. That can always change, of course, as he gets older, but I doubt it will. Too many contenders in this tank for my super red to really have a shot at the throne. But even though he isn't wearing his dress uniform, he's still really pretty, and you can see a lot of those colors just waiting to pop. Good fish. And this one is a Red Empress OB, the only OB I still have in the tank. A lot of times OBs can be a real pain in the ass, but this one hasn't been an issue at all. Definitely one of the more peaceful guys in the tank. I haven't noticed any con-specific aggression between him and the Super Red either. I think he has lots of good color, not the most beautiful OB I've ever had, but he's still pretty sweet. I feel like Taiwan reefs are usually a bit on the more beautiful side than this one is, but that's okay. He's just not living up to his potential, and that's fine. If he were human, he'd probably be the 30-year-old guy who's still living in with his parents.
Hi, Mom.
Sorry if that also describes you, by the way. I can't even remember how long I've had him, but it's been a minute. He's very peaceful. Don't want no trouble with no one. He's a perfect example about how I go about fish keeping, too. These fish are more than just fish to me. I enjoy their personalities and they become more like family than pets. Kinda weird, I know, but it's true. So it doesn't matter if you're pretty darned ugly like my friend Monty is. You're still part of the family. I'm not gonna rehome someone just because I don't care much for the looks of them. And speaking of the looks of them, check out the looks of this guy right here. Keanu Reeves is a roadie, and just like the actor, he's a great guy. And a fine-looking specimen too. I have no complaints about Keanu. And isn't that blue just something out of this world? His head shape is pretty strange for a hap as well. His forehead just kind of drops straight down into his mouth. He's really a cool fish who has recently discovered that when I hand feed Gary, if he comes up to my fingers, I'll give him a little something too. And since we're on the topic, why don't we get on to that feeding I promised you? And finally, the moment you've been waiting for, well, at least the moment the inmates have been waiting for, supper time. If you're a parent to African cichlids, then you know what an experience it is to feed these clowns every day, getting as much as they can before the pellets hit the ground. And then they turn it over to vacuum mode, where they start sifting the sand as fast as they can. I remember when I was a kid, I used to always have Jurapari cichlids, called them earth eaters, and I thought they were the only fish that sifted sand. Imagine my wondrous surprise when I found out that there are tons of cichlids out there that share that same awesome behavior. It's one of my favorite things about African cichlids too. I just love it.
Be sure to let me know what you think of the tank, the fish, if you have a favorite one, and also if you have a favorite fish of your own in one of your own tanks. And next week I'll give you an update on my Mbuna tank, and everyone in it will get a fish profile. So be sure to stick around for that. I'll have it posted right here as soon as it's ready. You've been watching the Cichlid Charmer, and as always, thank you for watching. God bless, and I'll catch you next time.